All right, we are officially live. So I'm going to introduce the show, like I said, introduce you, and we will be good to go. What's going on, millionaires? You're listening to the Million Dollar Mind Podcast, episode 152 on creating marketing systems for your small business. Now, I'm super excited about this conversation. One, let me give a quick disclaimer. I'm not typically a fan of us labeling our businesses as small businesses, right? Because of course, when we start out, it's going to start off as a small business. But unless you are intentionally making your business small, that's why I don't like labeling the business as a small business, because eventually I'm trying to make this business a big business. So of course, when it comes to going from small business to big business, you have to do things a little bit differently. What got you to, 10K a month is not going to be the same systems and same processes to get you to 100K a month. So that's why I thought it was important to have this episode with who I'm having it. I'm having it with a marketing guru, man. I'm super excited to have this conversation. And I'm going to bring our guest on in just a little bit. But that's why I wanted to have this content, because I think it's super important that we learn the importance of scaling and changing a few things in our business so that we can convert and make that shift from small business to big business. So right when we dive into today's content, I do want to introduce our guest, Derek Sleeps, who we're going to hear so much about him, but I do want to pass the mic off to you, Derek, to tell us a little bit more about yourself, tell our guests what they can expect from today's episode, and we can dive right in.
Well, yeah, no, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much for that intro. So yeah, like my name's Derek Sleeps. I've lived in Seattle most of my life. Actually, for a year, I lived in Japan for 13 months, and that was a interesting experience. But yeah, so my background actually, I actually grew up as a gymnast, believe it or not. So that's kind of something most people don't know about me. But I was actually a gymnastics coach for quite a long time. And then I kind of decided to pivot and change the trajectory of my career. And so I started looking deeply into things like front and back end web development. I looked into different, business models, and kind of fell in love with marketing. And I didn't expect to go that route, actually. But when I first got into that, my original mentor was pretty good at working with real estate investors. Um, so I'd always had an interest in investing. Ever since college, I read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so based on his experience and the fact that I already, was drawn to that, that just was kind of a natural thing for me to focus on. So for the last 3 years now, I've almost exclusively worked with people in the real estate space, doing all kinds of different things with their marketing, to kind of like you described, to help them go from doing like if they're a wholesaler doing 1 to 5 deals a month. Okay, now how do you actually build the systems and scale that to doing 10 plus deals a month? Like what do you need to add to your business? What do you need to modify and change? And so that's really what I've focused on over the last 3 years. I've worked with other agencies large in this space that have solely focused on real estate professionals. At one point, I was managing like 27 of these accounts at once. So that's kind of my background, and just like a summary of my experience. Now, there's a lot of applications for marketing that are applicable across any kind of business model. So I'm totally happy to kind of go through some of that. For example, I recently just talked to actually a friend I have on the other side of the world who is just working on his business for NFTs. And so I basically, with him, I sat down and just kind of walked through everything that I do with investors, and a lot of it was just as applicable because the concepts and the principles for marketing are the same. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, I definitely would love to, to dive into as much as we possibly can with the time that we have together. And again, I wanted to say thank you, Derek, for just sitting down and taking the time out to join us. I'm sure our millionaires are going to get a lot of gems from what you have to share with us today and just from your experience. Well, let's dive right in. So To our millionaires who are new and joining us for the first time, welcome back to the Million Dollar Mind Podcast. I'm your guy, Kai Speaks, and this is the world's most trusted podcast for passion attraction. And you're in the right place if you're here looking for money making tips and tricks to living a more passionate life. So you just heard briefly from our guest of the hour, Derek Sleeps. He is the appointment king. I just kind of dubbed him as the appointment king because he's really like helping people just book more appointments through his innovative marketing techniques that as he spoke about pretty briefly, right? So we're going to dive into that. Also, Facebook and Google Ads expert and REI inbound strategist. So with that being said, with all this that we just talked about, Derek Sleeps is nobody to sleep on, no pun intended. I was just waiting to say something like that. Hey, Derek, I'm going to have some fun, man. I'm going to have some fun. Man. Oh man. So again, I appreciate you you joining us. So I do want to just start off with your story. Like what experiences have you had that kind of molded you in to the person that is, sitting down and joining us today?
Oh, like I said, I was a gymnast for a long time. I mean, when I was 12 years old, I was training in the gym 30 hours a week. And that is probably one of the largest things that has molded me. That definitely put a work ethic in me that I think is unique, and I've applied that to every area of my life. Now, I mean, obviously, like I said, I was a coach for a long time, and so that's also kind of molded me. So I look at things both from the perspective of like what I'm doing day to day, and also from the perspective of like how is what I'm doing day to day and what I'm learning, how can I later pass that on to other people to help them grow? I've always looked at life like that. I always have had kind of like a teacher's mindset. But I also love to dig into things that are more, like technical, and I love to study. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but
Yeah, no, I could definitely see how the life of a gymnast has probably instilled a lot of like discipline in your life and things of that nature. And I was actually going to lead into that next. I do recall you mentioning to me when we first spoke that you started off as a gymnast at one point. Which so what caused such a drastic shift in your profession, like going from gymnast to now this marketing strategist? What happened in between that time to where you started to make that transition?
yeah. So I mean, ever since I was in college, I was always looking for ways like how do I make money online? How do I was trying to learn about investments. Like how do I do things? Because I didn't like the idea of kind of going the normal route of working, just a day job my whole life. And kind of, and going down that path, I was like, I want to build something, I want to have something in my life where I am building on my own, constructing that, kind of taking more responsibility for that, but also do something right that where, like I said, where I'm building something that's going to benefit other people. And so that's kind of what set it off. And I just had that in the back of my mind for a long time. I had done, like I said, I was a gymnast for many years. My original plan was actually to go to the Air Force Academy or the Naval Academy. I had a full ride scholarship to Naval Academy and ROTC, but I was fully disqualified in high school because of a peanut allergy. So that drastically changed my trajectory as well. And so I ended up going to college studying Japanese, and was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And again, I was trying to think like, is there any other way that I can, could start building something of my own? Ended up going to Japan, came back, and I had spent most of my 20s coaching, right? Most of my 20s was as a gymnastics coach. And I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm either going to do this for the rest of my life, or I'm going to shift, and I'm just going to kind of, go entirely in another direction and do something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And that's when like I said, I taught myself front and back end web development. I thought that was a good starting point. And then I started digging into marketing, and that's when I found that first mentor that really helped me kind of learn some, some kind of the basics of that for the real estate space in particular. And then I just kept building from there. I was like, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. And at that point, I made that shift.
Awesome, awesome. So, man, I heard a lot of nuggets there. So more so, it sounds like throughout the gymnastics, something kind of changed to where it became less of a passion to where you started to look into joining the military. That didn't work out. And so when you decided to join the military and that didn't work out, do you think that that is when you kind of tapped away from gymnastics and then started to more so just look into the web development and things like that?
Oh no, gymnastics have been a passion of mine for my entire life.
Okay.
And like I said, so I had applied to the academies for the military in high school, and I was still
Oh,
doing
okay.
gymnastics
Gotcha.
at that point. Um, but just because of a simple allergy, I was fully disqualified from the academies. And basically, I got kind of like a I studied international studies at the University of Washington, and just continued to learn Japanese because that was something else I was interested in. Um, but I continued to go along the path of gymnastics because I thought, well, maybe, I've been passionate about this for so long, but it was never something I was building myself, if that makes sense. I was constructing a team, I was teaching others, but it wasn't my own business, right? I was still working within the businesses that I was coaching for. And I really wanted to do something, that I was fully responsible for, right? That I could really build myself. And also that had to do more with, like I said, the not only the real estate space, but with technology, um, with kind of like the technical aspect of it. That had been, something my mind has always kind of worked in that way for a very long time. And so um, that's kind of how that worked out. The
Okay.
shift really was like, because I knew, like, right, if I'm doing coaching for the rest of my life, I'm only going to go to a certain, I'm only going to reach a certain level. And for me to really, reach the goals that I have, like, I had to make that shift.
And so as far as you identifying that niche of doing and focusing more so on real estate, why real estate? Why not let's say subscription based businesses or anything else? Like why real estate? How did you come to finding out that this was going to be the niche that I at least start off with?
It just made the most sense to me. Like I said, I've always been interested in investments and stuff like that. Like I mean, recently, um, you know, crypto and Bitcoin and all that stuff has kind of blown up in the last couple of years. I remember when that was first coming out in, gosh, this was back like 2011 or so, 2012. And I remember looking up online how to ways to make money online, and stuff was coming up about Bitcoin, right? And I had no idea what that was. That was when I was first getting started. And so, and like I said, in college, I was also reading books like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That had a big effect on me, and that was always something that I had in the back of my mind. And so just investing, real estate, technology, all that stuff had just been really interesting to me, and something I knew I wanted to move towards for a long time, if that makes sense. So when I got into marketing and my mentor was already in that space, it just instantly made sense to me. And so I bring up crypto and Bitcoin because that's another area that I see the real estate space moving towards. Now that NFTs, those are huge. And so now I think recently we had the first real estate transaction using NFTs ever. I think it was just a couple months ago, actually.
I've been hearing about this for a while now. Well, when I say a while, for the last 8 weeks or so, I've been hearing that now people are getting into the space of buying and selling real estate to where now you have people who own restaurants and lounges and even strip clubs inside the metaverse
Yeah.
in this space. So it is changing the game. So while we're still kind of on this NFT and metaverse, you did mention about a project of you helping a friend of yours with kind of doing the same strategies. So can you kind of touch on how these strategies are so transferable, right? You started off with real estate, but now you're seeing that these same strategies can apply to NFT, or these same strategies can apply to people with subscription based businesses and models like that. How is it so easily transferable?
Yeah, so that comes down to the concepts. I would say, like, obviously, if you're running a specific type of ad, obviously you're not going to use the exact same ad for one business as you would for another. But the principles of marketing are the exact same. So marketing generally, it's all starts with testing. It all starts with a kind of a foundation, right? So when I look at it with real estate, let's say that you're starting with just social media. You have to have some sort of a foundation from which you're going to advertise. So that could be, your social media pages, your branding, your website, whatever, right? You have to have some sort of a presence. Now, a lot of people have that presence already because just to get their business up and going, they have to use their time and they have to do kind of organic outreach online. Because in business, like I'm sure all of you know, like there's only two currencies, money or time. So at the beginning, you use your time. You have to build that up, and then when you have that system, then you start to use your money to win back your time, to buy back your time through building systems. When it comes to marketing and advertising, just for real estate, for example, you have like your social media, and then you start with one form of marketing, for example, right? Let's say you're doing paid traffic on Facebook. Okay, so you're going to test. Do you keep them on platform or do you take them off platform? What kind of campaign are you running? It all involves like you have to basically is going to work. And then once you find a system that works and you develop that proof of concept, then you can basically expand that just to a different form of marketing and you start to layer them on top of each other. So when it came to helping my friends with NFTs, what I was looking at is, okay, where's he already at? What is he already doing? What is his current strategy, and how is that working or is it not working? And then, okay, what is the goal? What is the actual objective? And how do you connect that objective, right, through either paid traffic or a more robust organic strategy through, I mean, for him, it's more like Twitter, right? Twitter, I know Twitter, Discord, there's other platforms, Reddit, Quora, that you can advertise on specifically for that type of business. But again, it comes down to you have a foundation that you start from, and then you test one thing at a time. In marketing, we call it A/B testing. In some cases, you can do more than just A/B testing. You can test a whole bunch of different things at once, depending on how powerful the algorithms are on the platform. Um, but that's kind of like I don't know. I hope I'm not getting ahead of your question, but that's kind of like an overview.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think that you were getting ahead at all. In fact, just kind of what you shared kind of helps me. Well, not necessarily help me understand, but gives me even more questions because I'm just a baby in the game right now, Derek, and I'm just trying to understand, how all this stuff works. And when we're dealing with a lot of new entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs who are getting started, and as you mentioned, they start off using a lot of their time. And when it comes to now the transition of identifying like, hey, I'm using a lot of my time, but I have some money so I can buy back a little bit of my time. With marketing, I think it is so people shy away from using that money towards marketing because of how unknown it is. And I hear you saying things like testing, A/B testing. Is there a way to kind of like help people feel a little bit more confident of using those dollars for marketing, especially like for the content? Like what is it exactly are you advertising, the content of what you're advertising? How do you test that before just dumping a whole lot of money just to have an ad flop and not produce the results? Or what kind of mindset, I think, is the best question. What kind of mindset should people be in when they enter this space of testing these different ads and marketing techniques?
Yeah, that's a good question. So number one, it does depend on the niche. It does depend on the industry. I mean, you think about just for real estate, right? If you're thinking just wholesaling, the average time that I understand, the average time from contract to close itself is just 30 days. So if you're going to start testing marketing, first of all, you have to think, okay, you have to think quarterly. That's the best way to think about it. If you
Mm-hmm.
think month to month and the average time it takes is 30 days, well, you may not have enough time to really determine, is this, working long term, right? So that's the first thing I tell people, at least within real estate, to think about. And this applies to whether, I'm working with agents, realtors, brokers, wholesalers, rehabbers. You have to think about that in a quarterly way. My process basically is we start with one area and we get a proof of concept there. So let's say you start with something like Facebook, Instagram, right? And you keep them on the platform. So you keep the actual leads on the platform. You don't take them off to a website, right? You may not even have that built yet, right? But you keep them on platform, you test that, you get a proof of concept there. Okay, so then now that's working. Now you build out a conversion uh, optimized landing page. And then you, instead of keeping them on platform using Facebook's lead forms, now you start to send them off platform to that landing page. And so now you're testing that. And then you start to compare, right? Once you have that developed, okay, now if that landing page is now converting on Facebook, well, now let's take that same landing page. We know it converts well for one platform. Let's take it to another platform. Let's try Google pay-per-click. Because by then we have the foundation of, okay, this works here. Now we'll move it here. And so you start building that out. But in other industries, I mean, first of all, you want to make sure that you have like a goal, an objective, a campaign objective. You have to know like what your actual goal is. Like, are you just looking for email opt-ins? Are you looking for appointments? Are you looking for, name, email, phone number? Are you just looking for people to join your Discord, right? Are you like, you have to have an objective first. Once you have the objective, then you can write copy and develop the ads basically to obtain that objective. And you want to start with at least a template that has been proven by someone else already. And then you can adjust it and adapt it for your own purposes. That's what I would recommend if you're new. There are ways to do this, like TikTok, for example. TikTok's really new right now, right? Relatively, for a lot of businesses are getting into TikTok. If you're going to experiment with advertising on TikTok, you can literally go into, you create your business and ad account manager for the business side of things. You can literally go in and they have a mini ads library where you can look at the top performing ads and you can see what people are actually already doing. You can search by industry. And so that's what I would tell people do. Like, if you're going to try to do this on your own, do research, and you can actually search. Same thing with Facebook. Facebook has a Facebook ads library. You can literally search by keyword. And as long as someone's running ads, you could even search your competitors and see what ads they're already running. And you can start there as a kind of like a foundation. Now, Facebook didn't used to have that. I think TikTok is doing something similar, but it's not as built out and as robust as Facebook because it's newer. But that's where I would start. Like I said, it's like step by step, but try to do research first. And like, I literally just had a friend, he just asked me the other day about how to, like, he was asking me for ideas. Okay, he works with people who are in the kind of mental health space. Okay, so he had a client come to him who basically wanted to advertise his surf. I think it's like surf retreats, something like that, like some sort of business like that, where they wanted to advertise their event. And all that I did to give him ideas, I just went onto the Facebook ads library and typed in keywords based on that, and I sent him probably 15 photos of ads examples that they could use for something very similar. So that's what I recommend to do to people, or to do for people who are kind of just starting out looking for ideas.
Wow, that's a huge gem right there. Like, I didn't even want to cut you off, but I was super like eager to just hit that, because that was a gem right there, Derek. Like, I had no idea TikTok or even Facebook had these libraries to where you can look at actively running ads and kind of see how they're performing. And wow, like, because I was getting ready to ask you, like, well, if you don't have someone that you can duplicate, do you recommend maybe doing it organically and just kind of trial and error and doing it that way? But you can kind of skip the whole trial and error of doing it organically and just kind of posting and see what works by just going to these ad libraries. It sounds like seeing what works and just copying that, but just plugging and playing your own content and your own originality into the ad.
Yeah, and the other thing is that people need to remember that content you use in an ad, you can use that for content on your page, on your website. The main point is that you want to be speaking to your target audience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, every ad should be designed to have like basically like 5 different parts, or just even thinking just content that you're writing, right? So number one, you want to, if you're doing something like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, those are all what we call disruption marketing, meaning that you're literally trying to disrupt someone in the middle of what they're doing to get them to pay attention to you. So on YouTube, that's the first 5 seconds, right? On TikTok, I don't know what the time limit is, but it's, they're swiping like they would Instagram, but it's all video. You have a couple brief seconds in there to get their attention. Facebook, there's an Instagram scrolling through their news feed. You want something that an image or a video that stands out, grabs their attention, right? If you're doing video, maybe like wave at them, like knock on the screen, right? Like, hey, pay attention here, right? It's disruption marketing. It's different than Google PPC, which is, higher intent search-based marketing. So with disruption marketing, number one, you need an image that's just disruptive, or a video that's disruptive. Number two, your headline should be calling out who you're actually talking to. That's the first thing. Like, especially on Facebook, those first few lines, you need to be speaking directly to your target audience. Number three, you need to be addressing their pain points. What are they actually struggling with? What are they going through? What would apply to them? What USPs do you offer? Unique selling propositions do you offer to them that would be like would actually help them in their situation, right? With their problem that they're going through. You need to understand your target client or market. And last, you need to give a call to action, right? Present your offer. That's another obvious one. Present what you're offering, but give a clear call to action, right? Click this, go here, take this next step. You have to do that with disruption marketing because there the psychology is a little different, right? They were just scrolling through their feed. They were just watching a video. They were just doing what they're doing. You've now disrupted them. So it takes a little bit, right? You need to put a little bit more of that in there to actually guide them clearly, step by step by step. Do this, do this, do this, do this. Now, that process that I just described of like those 5 things, if you find an ad in an ad library that has those 5 elements, you can test it for marketing, you can test it Facebook, whatever you're doing, but you could use those 5 elements or that on platform content on your website, right? If you're creating Instagram posts, you're creating Facebook posts, you're creating content, videos for TikTok, apply the same ideas, and that way you're kind of getting, like, Gary Vee talks about this a lot, right? Where he'll be all over tons of different social media, and something he uses on one, like he'll have maybe a Twitter, he'll tweet something, snapshot that, post it to an Instagram story, make a video out of it, put that on YouTube or like whatever. Like he uses the same kind of content across multiple platforms. And so the more that you can do that, the more you can be in front of your audience, the better, as long as you're kind of following those 5 principles.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. And it's so with the target audience, I do think that a lot of, again, we don't, a lot of people don't have an idea of who their target audience is, or how to even to pinpoint who that target audience is. Just from your experiences, do you have like a nice 3 steps, or 3 methods or something that kind of helps people identify what their target audience is, so that they can better put their content in front of the right people?
Yeah. 100%. This is the most important part, because you have to understand, number one, well, you do have to understand who they are first, right? Once you understand, like, okay, who is my target audience, right? There's actually probably more than 3 things. There's probably 5 again that I would say. Like, number one, you want to understand, like, okay, who exactly they are. So this is, what do they eat every day? What do they do every day? Where are they every day? Like, what are the common things they're doing? Like just who are they? Where do they reside? What social media are they commonly on? Like, that's one thing. Number two, you want to differentiate that from people that you do not want to work with, right? So that's something that you don't want to leave out. You want to have both. You want to know, okay, who is my target market? And then you also need to actually define, who is it I don't want to work with, right? Because that's also very important. You don't want to be writing ad copy, right, or content for a market that includes both of those. So you want to differentiate that. So that's number one. The second thing is, once you know who it is, you want to find out what is their current reality. And this just takes research. This just takes talking to either people that are your target market or target client, or talking to people who often work with them, right? And you want to find out what is their current reality. That's like the next thing. What is their current reality? What is their day-to-day struggles, goals, pain points, things that they right that they struggle with, and then, like, what is it that they desire? So that would be the next step, right? So you find out their current reality. What is their desired outcome? What is it that they actually want to achieve? Where do they want to go? What do they need to be fixed? What problems do they need solved? And then once you know that, so you know who you want to work with, who you don't want to work with, you know their current reality, and their struggles and their pains, you know their desired outcomes. So this is their goals and where they want to get. And then you have to understand, okay, what is the common gap? What is it that prevents them from getting from here to here? What is stopping them from going from their current reality to their desired outcome? Once you understand that, then you position yourself through your content or what you're advertising, whatever you're doing, as the bridge to gap that. So you want to separate those two things as far as possible when you're speaking to that audience. And after you separated their current reality and their pain points from their desired outcome, so it's very clear, then you draw that bridge and you say, okay, now here's my process to get you from here to here. And that's, if you can figure that out about your target market, about your clients, writing ad copy or even just finding ad copy that you know would work well, is it becomes much easier because it's pinpointed.
Another nugget. Another nugget. So man, that actually answered a couple questions that I was getting ready to ask you, Derek. And just one, it sounds like this is way more formulaic than people have thought. I've even or am guilty of this. I thought that ads was just something naturally that required a lot of trial and error, just kind of figuring these things out. And even still, I like to say that I was more aware that you definitely want to have a target audience and figuring out the best ways to identify that target audience. But even now, you stressing the importance of also identifying who you don't want to work with as well. And I think that's huge. That's super important because it helps you be a lot more intentional with the ad as well. A lot more intentional when you know the people that you really want to work with and being able to identify the person that you don't want to work with as well. So that's a huge nugget. So, just from your experiences of working with the countless clients that you have, what do you think is one mistake that always repeats itself when people run ads for the first time?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. If you're talking about just Facebook, a lot of people will confuse like boosting a post with actually running ads. That's just one common thing I run into. Running an actual ad campaign is much different than just boosting a post. Um, but that's the larger thing that I think people should understand is like it does take testing. Um, I remember when a lot of people were still trying to kind of figure out like how do we do Facebook ads for motivated sellers. And I remember talking to a lot of marketers, and a lot of just the kind of general feeling that I had was everyone was kind of looking like they're all looking for like that one ad to rule them all, right? Like that one picture, that one ad, like, and then that's how you do it, right? And you just need to know that one system, and then that'll get you results. Well, that's not the way things work. Like I keep saying, it involves testing. So what happens is it doesn't matter the platform. This could be Google pay-per-click, this could be Facebook, this could be Instagram, but whatever platform you're running ads on or doing marketing on, it doesn't even have to be paid traffic. If you only try one strategy, if you only try once and you try one image, one ad copy, one video, and that's it, and it doesn't work, then people too quickly come to the belief that, okay, well now just this is going to work at all. That it did, for whatever reason, I tried it, it didn't work, and that's just because they didn't do enough testing. When I test something, for example, in Facebook, there's a tool called Dynamic Creative, and Facebook didn't used to have this years and years ago. It was something new that they added maybe like 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, or something like that. But you can test up to 10 different images and videos at a time, 10 different ad copies at a time, 5 different headlines at a time. And within a couple days, you're going to know exactly which is performing better that's how powerful these algorithms are at this point. And so if you know how to use those tools, you can get a lot of testing done fairly quickly. But that's the key thing to understand, is that that's what all of this is testing, because every market is different, right? Every business is different. um, all these different platforms are different, and so you do have to do a bit of testing to figure out what's going to work and what's not.
Yeah, definitely going to have to do a lot of testing, and that can be tricky, right? Because it can also be, again, defeat like diminishing on a person's pockets, one, and on their mindset, just to kind of see this thing not working and not working. But another thing that you mentioned was just the difference between that there's a difference between boosting a post and an actual ad. What are some of the main differences? Because again, I'm over here boosting social media posts and thinking like, oh, okay, this is a good ad. Or I was like, okay, this doesn't work. And I'm thinking, let me just change the audience and edit things this way, but it's still not necessarily running an ad. So what's like the biggest difference between boosting a post on social media and actually creating an ad and running that ad?
So you could call boosting a post an ad if like it's still technically an ad. It's just how you are. It's just that it's not really a campaign. So what you're doing basically when you're boosting a post is you are selecting a specific, like for example, Facebook. We'll go to Facebook again. I mean, you can do this. Obviously, you can do this with other platforms, but what you're doing is you're selecting, okay, what is the kind of target audience that I would like to show this to, right? And what is the kind of interest they may have, right? And you're just showing that post to that one audience, but the objective is only just to have that post seen by more people. There isn't really, unless you have something tied to that post, it doesn't go much farther than that. So with a campaign, you are doing what's either called a conversion campaign or a lead generation campaign. Usually, at least within the real estate space. And this is where you are trying to get actual leads to submit via a form or to go to your website and submit, and to have that all tracked on the back end so that Facebook will approve the campaign on its own. And so it's different than just having a single post, push it out there, get more people to see it. There's just so much more that you can do with Facebook, for example. I mean, you can also run messaging campaigns where people are sending messages, responding to it directly to your inbox. You can run engagement campaigns where the goal is solely to get more engagement on the ad. There are campaigns where you're solely running a campaign just to get more traffic, right, without the lead generation or the conversion objective. So there's a lot more that you can do within the actual business manager account when you build that out for your business.
Do you think that do you think the offer makes a huge difference in the success of the campaign as well? Like maybe having just kind of like a lead generating offer where you kind of offer some type of free playbook or free resource just to kind of get someone's name and email address and phone number versus, something as like an ebook that may cost, 40, $50. Do you think that the offer makes a huge difference in the success of the campaign as well?
Oh yeah, 100%. It really, that depends also on the niche, on the industry that you're working in. Like for example, for real estate, just take real estate investing, wholesaling. We've run kind of like campaigns. We call them lead magnets, right? Where you have like some sort of value or something that you're providing in return for just an opt-in, a very simple opt-in, probably just the name and the email. And so I run campaigns like, for something like a foreclosure guide or something, right? To try to build an audience and attract an audience that is, maybe going through foreclosure, and knows people who are going through foreclosure. And, you start to build that audience, and then you retarget, you advertise to that same audience with a different type of ad, right? And what I found through doing that is just that running kind of just direct response marketing actually worked better. But in other industries, especially for info products, that works really well, right? It's kind of the same idea as a webinar. If you run an ad, you're just basically talking about some sort of training that you're doing, and you're providing a lot of value on the training. So that's the ad that you're running. You take people to, right, some sort of a landing page, and they opt in, right, through email or a name or maybe phone number or something like that. But then they can watch the training. They get a lot of value out of the training. And now you've built, not only are you generating leads in that sense, but you're also building an audience to target again on the same platform. And this is what you can, all this kind of stuff, you can't do this with boosted posts, right? This whole like retargeting mechanic, that's something that you have to do through the ads manager. So that's why I'm saying it kind of depends on the niche. It kind of depends on the industry. What I think is really powerful is when you create a video and you run a video ad, and then you retarget only people who have watched like 75% of that video ad. So that's similar to kind of what you're describing. Like in that video, you're kind of offering value. You're educating, establishing your brand and yourself as an authority, And the people who actually are really interested in that, they're going to watch most of the video. And so then you can say, okay, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, I want you to now take, you know, all of the people that have watched 75% or more of that video, and we're going to show a different ad to them now. And we're going to present like our actual offer. Or something really powerful is you can say, okay, take all those people that watch that percentage of that video, and I want you to create another audience that looks very similar to them, but is not the same people, and we're going to market to them. And that's called a lookalike audience. Now you can do this in wholesaling. Like if you have a bunch of skip traced leads or data, like you have a whole bunch of phone numbers, you have a whole bunch of emails, first, last name, as long as it's a list of like 10,000 or more people, you can plug it directly into Facebook. Facebook will match a certain percentage of those people to people on its platform, and you can market directly to them, or again, create that lookalike audience just to get like a better subset of the population to actually push your ads to. So that's kind of like the practical application of that. Like I said, it depends. Like if you're not doing wholesaling, then obviously, you know, if you have a customer list, for example, if you're a real estate agent, you have a list of certain people, you know, like you might have like a home buyers list, or, you know, it really just depends on what kind of business you're doing. Like if you're doing work with NFTs, then maybe it's all the people, you know, that already opted into something in your Discord, or, you know, or something like that. I'd have to think about it exactly, but that's really powerful, because again, it comes down to testing. You want to test that audience against just kind of like a wide open audience, because one may perform better than the other.
Yeah, I love that, and it sounds like it's just. I love that we're giving this content too, and Derek is really giving people an idea of just how to think and be a little bit more intentional in the long run. Because I'm thinking, like, even for the people that may not be in a position to start running ads tomorrow, just from the content that you just shared, if I'm that person, I'm going to now be more intentional of like creating some lead generation offers, finding a way that I can build out my email list, finding out a way I can build out my customers list or my buyers list, so that when it comes time for me to put out this video ad or for me to put out this ad in general, I have that list that I can just plug and play, and then you have these lookalike audiences that you can market to, and all kinds of powerful things. And while we're on the topic of intention, I think that for me is probably the biggest reason, or the biggest difference between boosting a post versus doing something in the actual ads manager. Because most of the times when we boost a post, it's just a photo or video that we already posted on Instagram that might not have gotten the attention that we thought it deserved, so we just boosted it, and it's not necessarily with the intentions of this is going to be an ad campaign, so forth and so on. So man, everything that you said, I'm like loving. I'm eating it all up, and I hope that the millionaires are too. So what would be your 3 keys after everything that we just kind of talked about? What are your 3 keys to running a successful ad? If you can kind of give us that list, what that list look like?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. First, you got to decide, do I like what currency are you using in your business? That's what I would think. Number one, are you primarily using your time, or are you primarily using your money right now? If you're primarily using your time, and this is something you want to learn on your own, I suggest, like, number one, find either someone that knows what they're talking about, that can help you to learn how to do this well from the beginning. Or number two, invest in some sort of, there's all kinds of training. There's all kinds of free training out there. There's all kinds of paid training, but find something specific for your niche, for your industry, to learn it, if you're going to spend your time to actually learn it. Because you can just learn generally about, you know, how to run ads here and there. But if you can find someone that specifically in your industry knows exactly what works, what doesn't, because they've done all the testing before, look for that. Now, if you're just going to use your money and you're not going to use your time to do this on your own, the same principle applies. Find someone that you can trust to do it for your specific niche and industry. But number two, you need to understand that it's going to take, you know, time to do the testing, depending on the platform. Obviously, like if you're doing something like Google pay-per-click, you have to wait for clicks and leads and things to come through before you have the data to really analyze what's working, what's not. Whereas with maybe if you're using a platform like Facebook, you can do testing fairly quickly, right? And actually understand fairly fast, within just a week, what's going to work and what's not. And so you have to understand that you need to do testing, but start with, you know, a foundation that's already strong. And then from there, you have to just understand that this is, it's all about ROI, right? In most advertising, what you're looking for now, I would say it's going to vary based on the industry, but you want to look for something that's going to give you a 5-to-1 return on investment. So you have to realize though that initially you're going to put money in, right? And you have to build that system out, but it's for that longer term benefit so that your business can grow and scale over the long term. So don't think of running ads and marketing as like a get rich quick kind of thing. Think of it as a long-term investment in your business. If you're going to do it on your own, either find someone who knows how to do it well for your specific industry already and take the time to really learn it, right? And be ready to think about it in a quarterly way, not just like, okay, I'm going to try this for a couple of days. If nothing works, then I give up, I'm done, right? That would be my advice.
Well, I definitely know which one I'm doing because my time is already ran thin. I'm going to my guy Derek. I'm going straight to the ads plug. That's where I'm going. And you're right, it is an investment. And when people start to think of it more of an investment as opposed to an expense, because an expense is something that doesn't give you a return, right? An investment is, it may not give you a return tomorrow, it may not give you a return in the next week, but through the right attitude and the right strategies applied and so forth and so on, that investment will yield a return eventually. So once people kind of understand that and think of these things as investments, it goes a long way. So when do your clients typically start to see results after applying some of these things? And of course, let's go about it two different ways, because you may have a client that comes to you that already has all this stuff figured out and they're more so going to you to do the implementation, and you may have a client like myself that's a total noob in the game and may need a little bit more help building this out. When do you start to typically see the results and the fruits kind of bear from that labor?
Yeah. So if you're talking just with wholesalers, I mean, I've had multiple clients that have gotten properties, like more than one property under contract just in the first 30 days. And that's with Facebook or Google pay-per-click. So the biggest thing is that as long as you have good follow-up, right? Just take wholesaling, for example. Wholesaling, it's all marketing from the beginning to the end. So it's marketing to find the sellers, it's sales, right, to get the properties under contract, acquisitions. It's marketing to find your buyers on the disposition side. The whole thing is marketing and sales. So once you have that already, okay, that's number one. Number two, then you, of course, you build out the system that you're going to start testing, but you want to make sure that you have some sort of good follow-up in place that may be a little bit different than what you're used to just for kind of your normal day-to-day activity within your business. Because with online leads, you have to remember they are opting into your advertising. They're opting into yours as a lead. They're accepting, okay, it's okay, please contact me. And so you want to, especially with something like Google pay-per-click, where those leads tend to be a little bit higher intent already because they're searching, you want to establish that relationship with the lead as fast as you possibly can. With Facebook, like this comes down to like, okay, well, you want to be able to follow up with them via text, email, maybe ringless voicemail within 5 to 10 minutes, ideally under 5 minutes. Just to give an example, we used to work with a team out in Philadelphia when I was first kind of getting started with this a couple of years back, and they were a wholesaling team in South Jersey and Philly, and they had a acquisitions team for the morning and the evening and the afternoon and the night, right? So they had two teams. And if someone submitted as a lead for Google PPC at 3 in the morning, they would call them 2 minutes later. They'd be on the phone with that person. So to get started with this, to see results, the reason I bring all this up is because you want to have good follow-up systems in place. So make sure that you either automate this, right, or find someone that can automate it for you. And this again will help save you time, because again, with online advertising, a lot of it is numbers. It's numbers, numbers, numbers. I mean, that applies to whether you're doing outbound marketing, right, kind of organic marketing, or paid traffic. It's a numbers game. And when these leads are coming inbound, they've opted into your system, they've given you permission to contact them. So you want to have some sort of automated follow-up, whether that's an initial response, just saying, hey, we got your information, right? Or it's a more extended, like longer sequence where you're sending them ringless voicemails, text messages, emails. It's going to vary niche to niche. I'm speaking mostly to what I've seen work well in wholesaling. But that's a piece of it that you still want to have in your business. Ideally before you start running the ads. Doesn't mean you have to have it there. You can do all this work yourself, but to save yourself time with doing all that follow-up, as it is a numbers game, it's best to have that in place, right? So you're going to need just a couple of things, right? You're going to need the kind of the follow-up. You're going to need a system for the ads, and then if you are running it to an actual landing page, then you're going to need that. That's not applicable in every situation, but like we went to go back to your initial question, like I was saying, I've gotten results for my clients within just the first month, and you'll start to get leads obviously within the first couple of days if you're implementing a strategy that is already kind of proven and you're testing things right from the beginning.
Yeah, that's the great answer. Great answer. And the automation, I think, is a big part of that as well. Just from personal experience, having a system or something in place where you're getting the lead generations. And we've had issues before where somebody will fill out a form at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, granted, nobody's calling at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you want to have something that continues to have you on their mind after, because for someone to fill out a form at 3 o'clock in the morning, that means they're motivated. And if you don't have something to like let them know, like, hey, I see you're motivated, I'm going to get to you as soon as I can, then it's like they're just going to find the next person that reaches out to them first. It's like the first contact wins.
And you think about it in the context of wholesaling, right? Where if they've gone to the length of 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, searching for someone to help them sell their house, they've probably looked at the top 3 results on Google, put their information into all 3 of those to get a different offer from 3 different companies. And if they do that and someone immediately follows up with them 2 minutes later, one, their mind's already on their problem. They're already looking for help, right? So you've now established that relationship with them, and you've already started talking with them and helping them solve their problem before the other couple companies wake up in the morning and see they got a new lead and call them at 9 or 10. And by then they've already found someone that's working with them. So you get an advantage by doing that. Now, again, don't do that with Facebook, because Facebook's a different type of marketing. Facebook is disruption marketing, right? So people they weren't initially planning on, whether they already are a hot, cold, medium, warm, whatever lead. The psychology was that their mind is just on scrolling through their newsfeed, right? In that moment, it wasn't on like, okay, I want to fix my problem now. They were just scrolling. They still may be a hot lead, but that's not the psychology. So calling them at 3 in the morning is probably not a good idea, right? But still, yeah, like you're saying, you want to be able to follow up with them immediately after in the morning. So let's say that you're busy, right? And you're doing something else that day, okay, and leads are still coming in. Well, now you at least have these sequences, this automation that you've built out already reaching out to them in a casual way, right? So you don't sound like a robot. And it's already kind of keeping in contact with those leads, so they're not left hanging.
1000%. Early bird gets the worm first, and that's where that saying comes from. That's where the saying comes from. Let's just say that. So, Derek, as we start to wrap things up, man, I definitely appreciate you just for bringing your expertise and your knowledge to the show and really helping our millionaires just kind of understand the game of marketing and advertisement. A couple more questions for you, of course, before we wrap things up. You mentioned a lot about, target audience, and you mentioned the intention of not just identifying the target audience, but also identifying the person that you don't want to work with. I want to, I'm very curious, what does that look like for you? What is the mindset of some of your most successful clients, and just kind of picking like, okay, this is the type of client I really want to work with, and then what mindset have you identified as far as the clients that you've decided, hey, these are not the type of clients that I want to attract?
Yeah, so the 2 things that immediately come to mind is I find that my best clients are action takers. First of all, that's number 1. Is they tend to be quicker to make decisions and decisive. In terms of people that I tend not to work with, I mean, when it comes to real estate, obviously I have to qualify for, right? If someone is brand new to real estate, just getting in the door, then if they don't have their acquisitions figured out, if they don't have their dispositions figured out, then really, like, I wouldn't recommend them to even to look at paid traffic until they have their actual systems in place, right? Like every business is going to be different, but every business has, like, you need one, two, three, you need this like kind of foundation, right? So that when, if you do get customers, if you're running paid traffic and you get customers, you can actually handle those customers, right? You can actually make good use of those leads. Like, so I like, that's one thing I check for. Um, in terms of like what and that, that would apply to who I am looking for as well. But um, I I've noticed that there's kind of two different groups of people. There are people that, like you said, are implementation focused, and there are people who are kind of acceleration focused. So this basically means like there's people that want to kind of do this with me, right? And they want to learn and want to be more involved in the process. They don't want to micromanage, but they want to be more involved, but they struggle to implement. They just need help implementing it. Then there are people who are kind of like the acceleration clients who really just, they want to hand this off to someone. And again, it's kind of decisive and just want to move a little bit quickly. And so when I work with them, I'm kind of helping them to, rather than them doing all this work and research themselves, I'm accelerating that process for them, accelerating that ability for them to get results, to get to their, again, their desire. That's kind of my thing, who I'm going to work with. Which of those categories are they kind of falling in? Is this someone who wants just kind of more help implementing and they want to be more involved? Or is this someone who wants to be totally hands off and is just looking for that acceleration towards, getting these systems set up?
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. And for those that you don't recommend working with that don't have those systems already set up, you can send them right over to me and we'll get them right so that we can send them right back to you. All right. So that sound, Derek, means that we are now switching gears to our next segment of the show. Like I said, we almost wrapping things up, but I want to kind of drop our shoulders a little bit, have some fun, and we like to call this segment Rapid Fire. So I have 5 random questions that have nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes or so. It's sponsored by our guys over at Poddex. So the key here is just to be brief, be brilliant, but most importantly, have fun. So if you can answer the question with one word or one sentence, that'll be amazing. You ready?
Okay, I'll try.
Awesome. Let's do it. What is the weirdest thing you find attractive in a person?
The weirdest thing? I don't know if it's weird. Probably intelligence.
I wouldn't consider that weird, but we can go with that one. Most people
Yeah.
may not consider that. What most people wouldn't find that attractive. So let's get it. Serious question. Do you count your steps?
No, I used to not step on cracks outside on the sidewalk when I was a kid, though.
Oh man, if you didn't do that as a kid, you had a horrible childhood. If you didn't avoid the cracks, so you didn't break your mama back, you had a
Yeah.
horrible childhood. All right. If you could jump into a pool full of something, what would it be?
Mediterranean Ocean and Greece, 100%.
Sounds amazing. Sounds like somewhere I need to be right now. Would you rather be the best player on a horrible team or the worst player on a great team?
Worst player on a great team.
Worst player on a great team. Okay, give us the logic or the thought process behind that one.
Because they're gonna pull you up. They're gonna make you better.
I love
So
it.
you can be, yeah. If you're the best on a team, then you're gonna be. I mean, there's a benefit to that because you can be the leader. But if you want to grow, you got to surround yourself with those who are ahead of you. So
Definitely. I was watching this debate on the Social Group podcast, and they were the two hosts were debating on uh, uh, is the weak? Are you only as strong as your weakest link, or are you only as strong as your ability to lead? So out of that one, which one would you pick?
are you only as strong as? Uh, the way that I think about things is I'm only as strong as my lowest standards, basically. I don't know if that makes sense, but like um like the way that I look at it is people don't how do I explain this? Basically, it's much easier to fall into and be limited by your standards than it is to reach your highest kind of goals and aspirations, right? Your highest goals and aspirations, like you might get there and then for a brief moment and come back, but you more often than not you're going to be kind of bound to what your lowest standards are. So if you raise your standards, that's going to push you up towards your highest aspirations. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if
No,
I explained that.
that makes a lot of sense, and I'm even going to relate that to what we discovered with our wholesale business. Is like we had the standard of doing 15K a deal, and so we were only as good as that lowest standard. We started to see a
Yep.
lot more 10K deal, 15K deals, but as soon as we raised the standard to okay, we want 25K per deal. Now we're starting to see a lot of 30, 40, 50K deals just because we've raised that standard. So I definitely
Yep.
1000% get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. So last question for the rapid fire. We have, what do you think is the most unpleasant sounding word?
Unpleasant sounding word.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know, man. That's a hard one.
We can go to another one. I don't, most people don't. So I've asked that question, I think maybe all of 3 times, and only one person was able to answer it, and the word was moist.
I've heard a lot of people don't like that word. I get that.
Yeah. All right. So we could go to another one. I got one more for you. Do you have any superstitions?
Superstitions. Um, I don't have superstitions, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I am spiritual, and I do believe that there are such things as ghosts and kind of malevolent energies out there. So I don't know if you call that a superstition, but yeah, when it comes to spirituality, there are certain things that I do believe. A whole nother topic though.
Whole other topic, but I love to hear. I love to hear. So, man, Derek, I appreciate you hopping on the call and joining us and dropping the amazing gems that you have. We got 2 final questions for you before we wrap up today's interview. And the first one is, I'm going to put the ball in your court, right? So I want to hear, and I have to be very specific on what I'm asking because so far most people assume that I was going to give the options. So I want to know if you could give us a red pill, blue pill scenario, what is that scenario going to be? So give us a red pill to pick and give us a blue pill to pick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the Facebook group. I'm going to put this on our Twitter account. And I'm going to have people vote on your red pill, blue pill scenario and tag you in the results. How does that sound?
Interesting. Okay. Red pill, blue
Awesome.
pill.
Yep. What would you pick?
So these are just any kind of scenario, basically. So you just
Anything
pick,
you
I
want
just
it to
pick a
be.
scenario for red and pick a scenario for blue. Uh, hmm.
And while you think
This is
about that, try not to. While you think about that, yesterday was pretty funny. So I had my guy Ryan, and he like sold the hell out of the red pill, and the blue pill was like, "Well, why would I pick the blue pill? You made the red pill sound so good." So like his example was basically like, live forever with the red pill and die tomorrow with the blue pill. Don't do that because no one's picking the blue pill. Find some type of like give and take for each of them.
all right. Okay, so red pill, you lose your ability to read, and blue pill, you lose your ability to taste.
That's a really good one. So the red pill, you lose your ability to read, so you can't read anything.
Yep.
Like, okay, and then with the blue pill, you lose your ability to taste. Oh man, I'm not. I can't vote, so I'm not even going to try. But I really love that question, and I really want to vote. So that's a nice one. I appreciate that. So go
Yeah.
ahead, millionaires. If you heard it, go ahead and vote on the Twitter, or you can vote on the Facebook group if you're in our private Facebook group, or you can also comment in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. So let us know which pill you're taking. That blue pill, lose your abilities to read, or no, that's the red pill, lose your abilities to read, or the blue pill, lose your abilities to taste. What you guys picking? So Derek, the next question for you is you walking down the street and you happen to see 18-year-old Derek. What would be some advice that you would give your 18-year-old self?
Man, I would say to, hmm, Definitely face things that you're afraid of head on. That's number one. Because a lot of fear is just in the head, it's just in the mind. And this is something I experienced a lot as a coach. Like for example, when I was a gymnast, there's a lot of things I was afraid of, right? Different skills, different events that I used to train on. And when I became a coach later and I was teaching kids how to do these same things, I started to realize like there are certain things that once you do it once, the fear is gone because you've proved to yourself through the experience that there's nothing to be afraid of. And so that's one thing I would definitely try to reinforce to myself, because there's a lot of times in my life when fear prevented me from, from getting to places I wanted to be, and it took much longer than I would have wanted it to. Um, that's a big one. You got to face fear, whatever those situations are, head on. There's a good saying I heard recently that was like, if the more afraid you are of something, the more it's pointing out to you that you need to do it. Uh,
Exactly.
it's really powerful.
Are you familiar with the story of the Buffalo Soldier and how that term came about?
I don't think so, huh?
So it came about with the just how buffaloes in the wild, how they respond to threat, and mostly the most threats are of buffaloes is like storms and things like that. So while all the other animals are fleeing and trying to run away from the storm, buffaloes actually run towards the storm, because the logic is if you run into it, you actually face the storm a lot quicker than you would if you were running from it, because you can't outrun it. At the end of the day, it's going to catch up. So if you're running away from it, you're running in it now. So it's like you're just spending more and more time in the storm if you run away. So I definitely love that logic and that advice that you would give, not just to 18-year-old Derek, but really to most of our youth out there, when it comes to things that you fear, but it keeps coming up as something that you want to do, but you're just afraid to do it. You just need to just jump out and do it, because the longer you the longer
Yeah.
you try to run away from it, the more and more is going to come up, and the longer it takes you to actually beat that fear and rise above the occasion. So great advice, Derek. Now I want to give you the opportunity to really, plug yourself in. Tell us where we can find you on social media. Tell us about any special projects that you have coming up, some things that you're super excited about, some new innovations, anything. I want to give you the space to now share what you have going on.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Schleeps, my last name, SCHLIEPS, and on Facebook, just either search Derek Schleeps, or at facebook.com/Derek Schleeps is my business page. And I mean, in terms of what I've got coming up, like I said, I've worked a lot with, Facebook, Google pay-per-click, things like that. I'm looking more now into TikTok. And I'm also looking more into, NFTs and non-fungible tokens and how that's going to apply to the real estate space. I'm also looking into some, like how do we do actual better marketing for these kind of companies that are, because this whole space is exploding. And also TikTok is now kind of exploding as well. So those are two huge avenues that I'm starting to kind of set my eyes on. Don't have anything specific right now, but that is definitely where I'm kind of looking, at least for the future. Because I just see, 10 years down the road, that, crypto, the blockchain, it's basically, it's Web 3.0, and that's going to apply to real estate. That's going to apply to every industry. So that's really where I've got my sights set, for kind of like, the mid to long term at least.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, congratulations on everything that you have going on, Derek. I'm super excited to, be able to continue to stay in contact with you, and to continue to network and be a part of your other accomplishments. Hopefully I can be your next accomplishment, right? So I'm looking forward to the things that we can all do together. And I again want to express my gratitude just for you joining us and have you on the show, because I really feel like you did drop a lot of game and a lot of knowledge that our millionaires are going to take out of this and be able to apply and really become better entrepreneurs themselves. So with that being said, I also want to give a huge shout out and a huge thanks to our millionaires out there who are tuning in, week out, just being a part of the show every Monday and every Friday, you guys are showing up and showing out. So thanks in advance for becoming the change agents that you're bound to become as you apply the principles that you heard today. And if this episode really, really spoke out to you, and you have the systems now, you have the operations, you have the plans in place to where now you are looking to take a little bit more time to yourself, take your time back, and you are willing to invest that money to where you can learn but you don't really know where to start, then I definitely want to plug in again Derek, because as you see, he is super knowledgeable and super credible in what he does, and he can help you get from where you are to that desired result. So if you are looking to make that change and to get some ads up, definitely consider working with Derek. And hey, Derek, do you think we can get some type of sponsor code or something out there so you can know and decipher who's a part of the $1 Million Mind community?
Yeah, we could figure something out.
All right, I'm thinking something like Pod Beast. How you like that one?
Sorry, what? I didn't hear you.
Pod Beast,
Yeah, sure.
or Coolio. So guys, go ahead and hit up Derek. Let him know that you're a part of the community by putting in the word Pod Beast. I'll make sure that I include some type of link to either his Instagram or however we can get you guys in contact with him. But make sure you do include Pod Beast so he knows that you are a member of the community and he will look out for you. So I'm your guy, Kai Speaks, and you just heard from Derek Sleeps on creative ways to put in marketing systems in your small business. Just remember to build momentum, keep focus, and drive results so you can live abundantly. Peace.